Aloha Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Aloha Friday show with the Sandwich Islands Social Network. You can find out information about the Sandwich Islands Social Network, a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving Hawaiians and Hawaiians at heart away from their island home. Lower right-hand corner of your screen, sandislands.org is where you can find out about us. And every Friday, we are here talking to interesting guests that have something in common, all coming from the 808 or having lived or have been associated with the 808, the area code for Hawaii. My name is Kamaka Brown. Welcome to the show. Got to tell you, next week, Friday, a good buddy of mine, my goodness, I've known him for over 20 years. He is going to be on the Aloha Friday show next week, Friday. That's May 2nd. My good buddy, Augie Tolba, Councilman Augie Tolba. There is a serious side to him, and there's also an absolutely hilarious side to this gentleman. And he and I will be performing later on in the month of May. So we'll be talking about that as well. So just a note, next week, Friday, Augie Tolba on the Aloha Friday podcast. And lots of good times are going to happen right there. So right now, welcome. Good to have you on board. And, I was just talking off the air with our guest, Mr. Rusty Komori, who is the head coach of Punahou Varsity boys varsity tennis team. For 22 years, he won 22 consecutive state championships. He is a highly sought-after inspirational speaker and leadership coach. He comes out of Damien High School, and very, very proud to have and very happy to have with us on the Aloha Friday show, Mr. Rusty Komori. What's up, Brother Rusty? How you?
Kamaka, how's it going? Super awesome to be with you today.
Good times. Now, I have to tell you, our show is also Menehune driven, okay? Menehune driven because the trees in the back of me, the Menehunes are up there, and they always welcome our special guests. We have two Menehunes up in the trees, and they blow their portuguese conch shells. So here's the first one. That's the first Portuguese conch shell to welcome you, and we only do that for royalty. And of course, his wife, who is the boss, that's her conch shell, Rusty. I know you're thinking, what have I got myself into? I've talked to podcasters from around the world, and there's this crazy Hawaiian Kamaka. What's he doing with these Menehunes? Hope you can weather through our Menehune-driven podcast today, Rusty.
I love it, Kamaka. I love it.
So we have quite a few folks that are already joining us already. Here we have Auntie Kay Bennett from the West Wing of the Holly. She's saying aloha. She's welcoming you. And also Brother Marty Burns, the Brook the Mount Baker. He goes, hey, we here, we-ha, Aloha Friday. What's up, Marty? Good to have you on board, brother. So listen, Rusty, I just jumped in a plane over here at LAX, and I flew to Honolulu. I went pick up my rental, and I went call you up, and I am beyond hungry, man. I am hangry, and I said, Brother Rusty, where we going to grind, bro? Where we going to eat, Rusty?
Well, Kamaka, I'm going to take you to get okazu from Kabuki in Pearl City. So we need to go to get okazu from Kabuki. And then after that, I'm going to take you to the Pateli shop in Kalihi. And then after that, we're going to go eat at Giovanni Pastrami Restaurant in Waikiki. So that would be my plan for you that day.
So hold up. How did you know? Now, wait, I'm drooling already. Yeah. How did you know the Pateli shop is one of my favorite places to go for ganduri rice, bacalao, and pateles? And they get the auntie over there. She comes up behind the beaded stuff. And I'm looking up at the menu because I'm so hungry I cannot decide. She goes, you ready for order or what? And I said, not yet, auntie. Okay. You yell at me when I'm ready because I'm busy. So she totally ignores you. She goes in the back. And then you have to yell at her. Okay, auntie, I'm ready. Then she come out. Okay, about time, That is my favorite place. No air conditioning. They only get the fans that are going, circulating the hot air in there, and you're sweating. Why? What? Rusty, you my man. I love the Pateli shop, man. You gotta.
No, you're Kamaka, you're talking about Auntie Noma right there. I
Yes,
mean,
yeah,
Noma is awesome, and she's so funny because when I walk in, and I press the button, right,
yeah, yeah,
the buzzer, if nobody's in the front,
yeah, yeah.
and she's like, "Hey," and then she's like, "Rusty," I'm like, "Hey, Noma." So I need the Patelli shop like once, twice a week. It's a need. It's not a want. It's a need.
Oh, yes. Oh, man. Okay, Rusty, you started off with cruel, unusual punishment. Now I am hungry for bacalao, ganduri rice, and patelis, bro. I tell you.
Gotta have. Gotta have.
Gotta have. Okay, so Rusty, you brought up Mililani side. Um, Man, I go back in a day in which uh, our air and Wahiwa only had green, and if we take a drone shot, only had greens back in the day, and little by little, all the sugarcane, the pineapple, began to disappear, and all the housing, and all of a sudden, up pops Mililani. I have ohana that live Crestview in that whole area, right? And plus Mililani town. My good buddy Andy Bumatai lives in Mililani, so we had breakfast at uh, ooh pancakes IHOP in
Yeah, yeah.
Mililani. Uh, so tell me about growing up in Mililani, about your family early on. Tell me about the young
Yes.
Rusty.
Yeah, so Kamaka, I was born in Wahiwa, right? And we lived in Wahiwa till I was about 7 years old. Then we moved far away to Mililani. At that time, their Mililani Mauka was really not existent. It was just starting at the beginning phase of getting developed. So I mean, we would ride bikes everywhere. I mean, if I had baseball practice, soccer practice, I'd have to ride my bike to soccer practice all the way down to District Park and then all the way back up towards the golf course area where we lived. But I loved the community because it was just so everybody kind of knew each other in a way, because even when we would be playing ASO soccer, I mean, in Mililani, I mean, everybody kind of knew each other. And yeah, and then to have Mililani Mauka blow up like how it is now, I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. So at some point, you end up at Damien High School, the private high school there. Um, and give me an idea about what it was like at Damien. And you played soccer and were you into tennis at that time and that sports at all or no?
Yeah, so I went from Hanalani School to Damien for high school, and I was playing soccer, and I started tennis in ninth grade. But varsity soccer and varsity tennis had like some overlapping seasons, so I chose to play varsity soccer my freshman year while I still practiced tennis on my own. And then my sophomore year, I went out for the varsity tennis team, and I was number one on the team. And that's when, I went from like a follower to a leader. And that was life changing for me because all of my teammates looked at me for guidance. And, I was just playing tennis for 1 year at that point. So Damien, I mean, Kamaka, I gotta say, Damien was the most strict high school in the state. I mean, I remember the brothers and the lay teachers. I mean, they had like the paddles, with the holes in it, so that it goes through the air faster, which makes it more painful if you get spanked in front of the class. So
I
that kind of discipline worked, man.
Okay, I'm getting PTSD from my high school football coach Tiki Vasconcelos at Roosevelt, who had that paddle with the holes in it. Yes, up there, kind of like how some paddlers who paddle canoe, they have their paddle on a rack on a wall.
Yeah.
Well, he had his paddle, same thing, right? Of course, today it would be called child abuse, and I will see you in court. But back in the day, but it worked, right? I mean, you didn't turn out too bad, Rusty.
No, so Kamaka, that literally that kind of discipline worked. I mean, I remember I had to go to summer school before my freshman year at Damien. It was like they required all new incoming freshmen to go to summer school. And I remember Brother Fagan. I was in Brother Fagan's class, and he had just finished telling us, hey, when I speak, you do not speak. And I'm like, in the middle row, but towards the ending in the seating area where there's one kid behind me in the aisle, and he was talking to this boy right next to me, and then Brother Fagan looks at me and he just screams. He goes, "You!" And his eyeballs was popping out and his veins was popping out of his head, and he goes, "Get up here!" And I'm thinking, oh no, like he's looking at me. I'm thinking, it's not me. Then the boy behind me gets up, walks up, and I'm thinking, oh, lucky thing it was that boy. And Brother Fagan, Kamaka, no joke, okay? He grabs the boy by the throat, slams him up against the chalkboard. His feet is dangling, okay? And he's yelling at the boy saying, I said, when I talk, you do not talk. And we're thinking, oh my God, he's gonna kill him. And he dropped the boy, and the boy came back to his seat behind me. And none of us said a word. And so I go to lunch, and I see some of my other new friends there. And at lunch, they're like, hey, who was that guy that was yelling? I said, oh, that was Brother Fagan. Do not mess with Brother Fagan. Do not mess with him. So, Kamaka, that worked back in the day. that added to my discipline. Where I'm like, I'm just gonna listen.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, we have Abella. Lay aloha Carol. She says aloha Kamaka, aloha Rusty.
Oh,
Abella is a beautiful hula dancer. She dances Tahitian here at many of our events. And every time Henry Kapono comes into town, he calls Abella to be his featured dancer at any of his concerts here in Southern California. Uh, there's Katrina. Hi, Katrina. Katrina is also a hula dancer with a halau up in Palmdale, California. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And who else do we have? Oh, there's Carly. Happy Aloha Friday, everybody. Hi, Carly. We'll see you at Andy. Andy and I will be performing in July. Hopefully, you can be with us. We can have a good time here in Pasadena when Andy comes up. And let's see who else we have. Oh, there is Lara. She is in San Diego. Aloha, Lara. Nice to have you drop in. And did I miss anybody real quick? Oh, there's Miley. Miley Latuli. Hi, Miley. She says, this is so cool, Kamaka. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And let's see. I think we got everybody. If I missed you, e kalamai. Rusty and I are just having a good time reminiscing and sharing stories of corporal discipline in the high schools. You have, over the years, you went to Creighton in Nebraska. Did you? What was your major when you went to Creighton?
so I majored in communications.
Ah,
I had no idea what I wanted to major in. I just thought, gosh, maybe law school is a potential, but what would I major in? So communications just gave me the most options.
okay, all right. Um, Going through Creighton, you're playing tennis as well. Any memorable moments? Anything that stands out in your mind as kind of adding to the building blocks of who you are today, Rusty?
Yeah, so I was recruited by Coach Ed Hubbs on a partial tennis scholarship. And the reason I heard about Creighton was our family doctor, Dr. Bert Bisa, was on the Creighton Board of Regents.
Mm.
And then our next door neighbor in Mililani, my Aunt Marianne, she was just a big Creighton supporter. And so I kept hearing Creighton, Creighton, Creighton. And when they had offered a partial tennis scholarship, I felt, wow, I want to go to a Division I school, private school. And that first year, we played this Nebraska Open tournament, and it was one of the first opportunities for Coach Ed Hubbs to see his new recruits, because at that time we had to make a Betamax tape of ourselves and send it. And that was his only viewing of me, basically, was on Betamax. And so he had entered us into that Nebraska Open. And I was going to all these freshman orientation activities. So I didn't play tennis for maybe about a week. And in that tournament, I started developing this big blister on my right hand, and I'm right-handed. And in that match that I was playing, the crease right here in the hand. And so every time I would hit a ball, you're gripping the racket, but every time I would hit it, it would kind of turn a little and it would rip more along that crease, and it started bleeding. And I can tolerate a lot of pain, but this was a lot of pain. So I retired the match. 5:30 a.m. the next morning, I get a phone call in my dorm room, and it's Coach Ed saying, "Get your butt into my office." And I'm thinking, oh my God. I brush my teeth, I run down to his office, and he goes, "What is this blister? Where is this blister?" And I said, "It's right here." And he pulls my hand and he pokes it. He's poking my blister. And he goes, "Does this hurt? Does this hurt?" And I go, "Yeah, it hurts." And he goes, "Don't ever retire a match because of a blister." And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I guess that's unacceptable in college. So I went down to the training room to get my hand taped up for our early morning tennis practice right then and there. So talk about discipline, Kamaka. I mean, Coach Ed, he can't get away with stuff like that nowadays. But that was eye-opening to me, and it really worked, because oftentimes we get into that victim mindset, versus having that victor mindset. So that was a big turning point for my development as well.
We're getting into mindset, and how you view things, right? Your perception of the world around you and the things that you are affected by, and there's different situations. And so now there's this mindset, there's this mind over matter, if you will, concept that can help us endure, survive, surpass challenges that we face on so many levels as well. And that is early on dawning strong strong signals for you early on, for you now so many years later to remember that. And you're just telling that story, I can hear that passion where you're poking at your finger. You're reliving that moment, aren't you, Rusty?
I know, like who does that? I couldn't do that to any of my players, but that actually had a big positive impact on me. But that's Coach Ed, and he was in it for. He really cared about us, and he was just a huge influence on how I ended up becoming a coach as well.
So why tennis rather than any of the other sports? You played baseball, you were on a soccer team, you played tennis. Of those sports, what was it about tennis that said, this is the game that I want to play. This is the game that I have a passion for, and you parlayed that into coaching and mentoring, and centered around the game of tennis. Why that?
Yeah, so it all started. My mom started playing tennis. And so I would go on the tennis court with her, and I'm hitting home runs over the fence. And she quickly put a stop to that. She goes, "Okay, no, that's it. And if you want to learn tennis, you're going to start taking tennis lessons." And so I started taking tennis lessons from Rick Aquino in Mililani. And I thought, wow, I was kind of picking it up really quick, because, the hand-eye coordination that you need in baseball, that you need that in tennis. And then soccer, all the running you do, you need that in tennis. So I had all the running, all the hand-eye coordination. So I just quickly realized all I got to do is hit the ball in one more time. I can do that. And so I got really good really fast. So I started playing tennis tournaments, And then at the end of my sophomore year, I was ranked number 18 in the state of Hawaii. And then at the end of my junior year, I got ranked number 8. And at the end of my senior year, I was ranked number 4. And so I just loved that it was all me. Like if you win, you take all the glory. You know, if you lose, you take all the blame. It's all you out there. And unless you're with a doubles partner, but it's never good to blame your doubles partner because you got to play as a team. But I love that I could control my destiny, because if I wanted to be great at tennis, then I could go be great at tennis. You know, if you want to just be good at tennis, you can be good. If you want to be great, you can be great. It all depends on you. So I loved having that kind of control over my destiny.
Very interesting, because a team sport versus an individual um, uh, person playing tennis. Kind of interesting dynamic here. Very good, very good. So you come back. You're at Creighton. You come back to Hawaii. Uh, you you want to be a lawyer. Did you ever start studying for the bar at all, or was this out of your mind by the time off your uh, did
Oh
you look?
yeah. So I once I graduated from Creighton, I took the the LSAT test,
Ah,
and I came back and I started teaching tennis at Wailai Country Club, Punahou School, and at a private facility in Mililani. And so I during these tennis lessons, at Wailai Country Club specifically, I'm teaching tennis to these adult players who are all attorneys, and
ah.
they're telling me that they read all day, and I'm like thinking, oh my god, I don't want to read all day. And they're like, oh, you're gonna read all day. And I'm thinking, I like reading things that I like to read. I don't want to read things that I have to read. So Kamaka, that was the end of me pursuing law right there. And then I continued teaching tennis lessons, and I started developing a lot of our state's top ranked junior players.
Ah,
And then so after 1 year, I stopped Wailai just because I just wanted to get as much experience as possible. And then I continued teaching tennis at Punahou School and at that private facility in Mililani. And then 3 years since I graduated from Creighton, the Punahou athletic director and director of tennis met with me, and they said, "Hey, Coach Rusty, you teach tennis, private tennis lessons to a bunch of our girls' varsity players, but you teach private tennis lessons to over half of our boys' varsity tennis team. We should make you head coach of the boys' varsity team." And that's how I became head coach. I didn't have to apply. They wanted me to be the head coach, and that's how it all started.
wow, amazing. Here's Marty Burns. Marty says, now a little backstory on Marty. Marty is a retired high school football coach here in Southern California, who has turned his talents into baking. Go figure. This guy's a great baker. But he's saying athletic tape heals everything. That was about your hand that the coach is
Yeah,
poking.
I like that.
Abella shares, you, Rusty, are like a modern day John Wooden, only tennis. And Hawaiian, yes, Kamaka says, white tennis, great answer. Yeah. Yeah, John Wooden, wow, a legendary coach, and he had a what a legacy and a legend John Wooden is, man. Wow, very very good.
Oh, I completely agree. Yeah, John Wooden, he really set the standard. And, I had read his book, They Call Me Coach. And I'm just thinking, records or streaks, they're made to be broken. And that's a great thing to strive for, when, sports teams have winning streaks, and when everyone's trying to do things at a higher level, a high tide raises all boats. So I
Ooh,
I just love that, when people are striving for excellence, hey, it's there. I mean, if you want to be great, like I said, then go be great, whether you're a coach or a player.
hmm hmm wow. I may go see if I can find me a tennis racket. This will get this old body out. No. um, and yes, Abella is saying all those consecutive championships. You are a true inspiration in sports and life. You know, Abella, I'm glad you said that because I was just thinking that, Rusty. Um, that analogy of sports and life, and the concepts and the guidelines, and the things that you apply to your being successful in sports. You already said mindset, discipline, things that can be applied to life skills as well, which is where your coaching comes in for life skills. So at some point, after all this time at Punahou, you decided, was it 2015, about 10 years ago? You said, I think I'm going to say aloha. And how did Punahou respond when you said, I think I'm going to go do something else?
Yeah, so I became head coach in 1994, and through those years, I mean, that first year, I had won, our team won that state tennis championship,
Wow.
and at the end of that season, I get presented that big, beautiful Koa Wood state championship trophy, and I'm thinking, man, this is the best athletic trophy you can win for high school tennis in the state of Hawaii. How cool would it be if the coach were to give one of his players that trophy to have, to own, to
Ah.
keep forever? And so not and then that's what I did. Not necessarily the state singles champion or our state doubles champion, but maybe someone who just went above and beyond and exemplified, sportsmanship at the highest class and was the model teammate. And so that's what I did. And so I've been presented that state championship trophy 22 times in those 22 years. And today I own zero trophies, and looking back, I mean, Kamaka, what would I do with all 22 trophies? But it means so much to me that 22 of my players have those trophies. And so through those years that I was coaching, a lot of my players' parents are CEOs or business owners, and they would come up and tell me, "Hey, Coach Rusty, you need to write a book. You need to share what you're doing with your teams." And I'm thinking to myself, me write a book? I don't think that'll ever happen. And when we were going for our 17th consecutive state championship, that's when the media had reached out and they said, "Hey, there was a swimming coach in Colorado that had won a perfect 16 out of 16 state championships, and then he lost." They go, "If you win this year, you're going to be the coach with the longest, most perfect state championship streak in the United States in all sports." And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm feeling pressure right now. I don't want my guys to feel pressure. And so when we were going for our 22nd consecutive, I had thought to myself, I have a system that can be applied to any sports team, any business, any family to really truly develop their potential in anything that they're striving for. And so I thought to myself, I can keep coaching, we can keep winning, but is there something bigger or greater that I could do? Is there a way that I could try to inspire the world? And so that's when I thought, maybe I should try to write a book. And so at the beginning of that 22nd year, once we went through tryouts, we had the boys and girls varsity teams together with the parents. And I made the announcement at that meeting that that was going to be my final year coaching. And that was such a shock to everybody. I mean, people, players, some parents, they started crying right there, asking why are you going to, stop coaching? And so when they heard the reasons why, that I just shared, they understood. And I also said that I wanted to make the announcement at the beginning of the season because I didn't want to be a distraction at the end of the season. I wanted the end of the season to be all about the boys. And so again, once we won that 22nd championship, I get presented that trophy. I gave that trophy to one of our players. I literally went from the top of coaching down to nothing to try to start something new by writing a book. So I got my laptop out and I just started writing concepts and stories.
Wow.
And basically, my first book, Beyond the Lines, took me 2.5 years to write.
Wow. So this picture we're looking at here, would that be by any chance be that trophy?
Yeah, so that's one of the trophies. That was the last trophy that we had won, the 22nd trophy, and that's one of my players, Austin Hamamoto, who was a terrific doubles player for us as well.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah, it just seemed like yesterday, but it's hard to imagine it was 10 years ago now.
Fantastic. Gosh, that is beautiful. That really, really, really is beautiful. What a story. Oh my goodness.
That's a heavy trophy too, come on. I mean,
looks like
there's some weight to it, you know.
but the fact that you didn't keep it for yourself as a trophy of your you know, a visible, tangible accolade sitting on your shelf there, you opted to share that with the team or with an individual. And I have not heard of any coaches doing that. They take it and put it in their trophy chest there or their display, right? To say, this is what I've done. That's
so Kamaka, that's so it's an interesting thing. So I knew once my first book was coming out that I would get hired to do keynote speakings and executive coachings and trainings for companies and organizations. And so at one of my keynote speakings at the Kahala Hotel for this this construction group, one of my former players, Ross Inouye, was a member of that organization. And so he introduced me before I came up to do the keynote. And then part of the keynote, I shared that story about giving the trophies away. When I finished the keynote and went back to the table, Ross nudged me and he said, "Coach, do I have the first trophy?" And I go, "Yes, you do. You have the first trophy." And he says, "Do you want it back?" And I said, "No, Ross, that's for you." I said, "I'm so proud that you have it." And then he said, who gives the first trophy away? Like, what if you never won a second championship? I said, "No, that's just what I wanted to do. I always put myself in my player's shoes, and I'm trying to think, what can I do to be a better coach or to have a bigger positive impact on them?" And, maybe it was through John Wooden setting a certain standard and then me trying to find ways to maybe outdo those standards if I could in any way, but by making a big positive impact.
Wow. Here's Kay Bennett. She says, "I don't think you dropped down. You just jumped to another cloud." Ooh, I like that. I like that. You jumped to another cloud. Well, we're going to take a little break right now. If you just joined us, welcome, welcome. We are having such an enjoyable conversation with Coach Rusty Komori in Honolulu at this time. And we're talking about some wonderful concepts of, and we're going to talk about mental balance, mental health, and the key to success and to survival. We're going to talk about something about that, and you're going to want to stay with us for the second half as we talk about something that is saving people's lives. It's that kind of a conversation we're going to have. We'll be right back with the Aloha Friday show. Thanks so much for joining us. Hang in there, gang. We'll be right back.
greatness can be defined in many ways. And I know that greatness is a choice. Being average is also a choice. But what sets you on the path for greatness? Yes, it's choices. Excellence is a choice. Kindness is a choice. Positivity, perseverance, resiliency are choices. Self-discipline is a choice. Self-discipline leads to habits, which lead to success. When I was head coach, right after we completed tryouts, I would share with my team that I am not going to protect you from a challenge, but instead, I'm going to teach you how to face it. I continued on saying that we are going to have some major adversities, big challenges this year. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it is going to happen. And you know what? We need to welcome adversities. We need to look forward to these challenges, because when it happens and we deal with it and we get through it, we become better for that experience. We become stronger, tougher, smarter for that experience. So we need to welcome adversity. We need to look forward to these challenges. I found that there are 4 situations that cause the most problems in all of our lives. These situations I refer to as the 4 misses. Miscommunication, misunderstanding, misperceptions, and misinformation. I train teams to avoid these 4 misses, because if you don't, you're going off on these tangents, and these relationships with your coworkers or clients might become damaged. They might not ever be fully repaired. And then all of this is taking time away from you achieving the goals that you want to achieve. I know that all of us, every single day, face 2 daily dilemmas. One, you know you should do something that you need to do, but you just don't feel like doing it. Can you make yourself do it? The other dilemma, you know you really want to do something that you know you shouldn't do, but you really, really want to do it. Can you keep yourself from doing it? There are 2 types of people in the world. People that have a victim mindset and people that have a victor mindset. I want to share a story with you about someone who truly inspires me. Some decades ago in California, W. Mitchell had bought a brand new motorcycle. The day after he bought that motorcycle, he's riding it going 65 miles an hour, and he gets distracted for a split second. In that split second, a laundry truck merges into his lane. He slams into that laundry truck. The gas cap on his motorcycle pops off, and it ignited. W. Mitchell turned into a human fireball. He lost most of each of his 10 fingers because they were burnt down to his knuckles, and his face was completely disfigured. Now, most people in his situation would give up on life, but not him. He kept moving forward. He decided to start his own business. Within 3 years, he became a millionaire. He also had a passion for flying airplanes, so he got his pilot's license. Nearly 4 years after that crash, He's now living in Colorado. And he takes 3 passengers on an early, chilly morning flight. He didn't realize there was a thin layer of ice on the wings. Soon after takeoff, the plane crashed. 3 people walked away. He wasn't one of them. W. Mitchell suffered a devastating spinal cord injury that left him paralyzed from the waist down, with 0 chance for recovery. Because he could no longer use his legs, the doctors cut his toes off and sewed them onto his hands. In addition, his wife left him, saying that she no longer wanted to be with a fried cripple. Still, W. Mitchell moved forward. He became mayor of his city in Colorado, and he met the woman of his dreams, and they got married. W. Mitchell is famous for saying, "Before my accident, there were 10,000 things that I could do. Now, there are 9,000. I can choose to focus on the 1,000 things that I can no longer do, or I can choose to focus on the 9,000 things that I still can do." Since then, W. Mitchell has become a motivational speaker, inspiring and helping millions of people deal with their adversities, their challenges, in a positive way. So all of you here have a choice to either be a victim or a victor. Be a victor.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I'm at a loss for words here, Rusty. That is very, very, very inspiring. No question about that as well. I had the pleasure of last night viewing one of your podcasts. And by the way, for our friends that are with us, upper left right hand corner of your screen, rustykomori.com is where you can find out more about Rusty and what a fascinating journey he has had and how he has helped so many folks with making the right choices and life choices and inspiration to them. You have 3 books that are in print now, and we ended the first segment talking about the first book that you started, The Reasons Why, after you came out of that many years of coaching at Punahou, and now you have 3 books. Have you had responses? What kind of responses have you had from folks who have read your book? Any kind of any stories you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so yeah, thanks, Kamaka. Since Beyond the Lines came out, and then my second book, Beyond the Game, and then my third book, Superior, which came out this past May 7th. And then on May 8th, there was already Amazon #1 bestseller. And so my publisher had told me it was probably because of the popularity of the first 2 books, and because Superior, it just happened organically. But since Beyond the Lines came out till now, 11 people have come to me sharing that they're contemplating suicide. And
Wow.
after reading my books, it changed their mindset and it saved their life. And one of the 11 is a public figure in Hawaii, and he recently, about 2 years ago, came out publicly on my show to share his story about suicide and how one of his fellow police officers gave him the book, and he took it home that night, read it cover to cover in one sitting, and it changed his mindset and saved his life. And that person is former Crime Stoppers coordinator Sergeant Chris Kim. I mean, for people in Hawaii, you would see him on the news almost nightly. And he had told me that story about suicide around 7 years ago, during that first year when Beyond the Lines came out. I was at an event in Waikiki, and he had tapped me on the shoulder, and he's in a police outfit, and I don't know him at the time. He was working the homicide as a homicide detective, and he says, "Coach Rusty?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I need to know you." And I'm thinking, oh no, what did I do? Like, am I getting busted, like, or something? Because he's in a police outfit. And he goes, "I read your book and it changed my life." He goes, "Do you have any time to meet for breakfast, lunch, dinner?" And so we met for dinner the following week, and he told me his entire story. And at that time, I told Sergeant Chris, I said, "Hey, you're like the fifth person to tell me this same story." And because of that, I mean, I had to keep his story top secret for all these years until around 2 years ago. I talk with Chris weekly, and I had, around 2 years ago, I said, "Hey, Chris, what's the latest updates with you?" And he said, "Oh, Coach Rusty, I had to speak to a senior group today, and one of the seniors asked me, 'What's the biggest adversity you faced in your life?'" So he said, I told them the story. And I go, wait, the story? He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Brah, I've been keeping that story top secret all this time. Do you want to come back on my show and share it publicly for the first time for everyone?" And he said, "It's been 6 years. Yeah, I want to come back on." So we have his story, his testimony on my Beyond the Line show, which is on YouTube, and also in my book, my new third book, Superior, because there's 5 sections in Superior. The first section is Master Your Mindset. And one of the chapters in Master Your Mindset is mental fitness. And at the end of mental fitness, Sergeant Chris Kim wrote his story, his testimony in there. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change the narrative from mental health to mental fitness, because when you hear mental health, it sounds like something's wrong with you. But we all need to work on our mental fitness. So for me, when I'm doing executive coaching for CEOs or business owners, I'm helping them with their mental fitness so they can have peak performance at work and peak performance at home, just like how we need to all work on our physical fitness. And, when I reflect back on my coaching of the 22 years at Punahou School, that's what I was focused on doing with a lot of my players, was really helping them with their mental fitness. I wanted them to know that I cared about them as a person first, and then as a tennis player second. And so for a lot of executives, business owners, managers, I'm trying to coach them to really look at their employees as people first, and then as employees second. So having this resource of that Beyond the Lines episode on the show with Sergeant Chris, or even his story in Superior, this is a tremendous resource for anyone to share with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your employees, everybody, because people that have depression or suicidal thoughts, they feel extremely lonely. They feel helpless and hopeless. And so what I'm trying to do is have businesses and organizations and sports teams be proactive in sending forward that show to all of your people, so that when somebody has those mental health issues, they can watch that and be thinking, wow, I'm not the only one that feels like this. And he's a public figure. So Sergeant Chris truly exemplifies bravery and courage for sharing his story publicly. And he recently retired as the head of Crime Stoppers to take on a federal job with the Department of Army based in Korea. But he's able to come back once a month for 1 week with his 2 incredible daughters. So I just cannot believe the world, or our world, without a Sergeant Chris Kim. And he is such a leader, for the police department, and now with the Department of Army. but he's also a superior dad. And I'm so proud of the man that he's come to be.
Rusty, I gotta tell you, that episode, like I said, I watched it last night. It's about a half hour. Um, very, 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 very powerful. It it brought me to tears. And chicken skin, major chicken skin, and I strongly recommend our ohana that are with us on our journey here on our Aloha Friday show. To I have it on my Facebook page posted, or you can go to rustykomori.com and check out. And we have a picture of Sergeant Chris Kim right here with you, Rusty. And I was really, really taken by that amazing, amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. That was, to say it was powerful is not doing it justice. It just grabs your heart. It really, really, really does.
No, and
Um,
Kamaka, you're so right. And when I was preparing for that episode, I prepared for it for 3 weeks because I'm thinking, how do I bring his story, to 28 minutes? And I knew Sergeant Chris was gonna cry on the show. I didn't think I was gonna cry because I know the story for 7 years.
yeah,
But Kamaka, he starts crying. I start crying. Then
yeah.
the camera comes on to me, and I'm just like with
No,
the
I know.
napkin,
Yeah,
And so when we finished the episode, we're off air but still on. And then my producer was crying watching us, and then Sergeant Chris and I are still on but off air.
yeah.
And Sergeant Chris goes, "Oh, Coach Rusty, I love you, man." I'm like, "Oh my
Oh,
gosh." But I guarantee that episode is saving people's lives. We know firsthand that it is. And so again, Sergeant Chris, I want tons and tons of Sergeant Chris Kims in the world.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Quite of our friends have been asking a ton of questions. These are beautiful. Thank you so much. Let me see. Abella says, of your three books, which is good to begin with? I have grandsons in sports, would love to read and share.
Well, Abella, thanks for your question. It's best to start with Beyond the Lines and then go to Beyond the Game and then to Superior. But anybody can start with any of the three books. It's just ideal if you start from Beyond the Lines and go all the way through. The first two books are very thin for a reason, so it's not intimidating. Superior, it's a bold title. It's a thick hardcover book, but you know everything about that has to be superior with such a bold title. But yeah, thank you for your questions, and I know it's going to make a huge positive impact on your grandsons.
Beautiful. Here's my buddy Kimo Williams, a great musician, and also is into massage sports therapy, Danzan studio in here in Southern California. He says mahalo for sharing and inspiring. Absolutely. Marty Burns says the video says it all. Great job, coach. I always wanted to leave my players with life lessons as I coach them. Victorious warriors win first, then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war seeking to win. Wow.
I love it.
Oh,
Love that.
oh, good stuff. Thank you, Marty. That's wonderful. That is just wonderful. Kay Bennett is saying, ooh, chicken skin. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Katrina says the strength of that quote, be the victor. So inspiring. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for those thoughts. That's beautiful. Abella says, mahalo, Rusty. You're a person of true integrity. And mahalo, Kamaka, for this important interview. Our pleasure to share that with you. And as I said, um, watching that video last night gave just uh, a desire in me to make sure that I shared it, in my circle of friends and in my proverbial tribe out there. Please take time to read it. It is good. Here's my buddy Johnny Rocks Hollywood on Oahu. Another great interview, Kamaka. Oh, thanks, Johnny. Appreciate that, and I appreciate the comments here. And here's my buddy Dan Logroño. I'll just call him Coach. That's it, Coach. And Nate Jones. And I want to share Nate Jones is our production assistant here. He's our talent wrangler. And he's the behind the scenes that makes it possible for all of our guests to come on board the Aloha Friday show. He says, "Aloha, Rusty, chicken skin indeed." In addition to John Wooden, like Abella said, Charlie Wiedemeyer was also a champion coach who inspired me as you do, Rusty. Yes, we had Charlie Wiedemeyer's widow, on our Aloha Friday show. Talk about working through adversities, yeah. And he came out of Punahou as well, an all-time champion football coach there as well. My goodness. Okay. And Johnny says, Rusty has such great presence in social media, especially locally. Absolutely. Rusty is all over the media there with his positive message. If I missed anyone, I apologize. I'm just kind of scanning through the comments over here. They come in really, really fast, and I don't want to. Oh, here's S. Sun saying, Rusty, are you related to Rusty Komori from Waihiwa, my dad's friend from the 1960s?
Yep, I am related to the Rusty Komori from Waihiwa. So my grandpa was Kenneth Komori, who owned Rusty's Florist. But because he owned Rusty's Florist, they would call him Rusty. But his actual name was Kenneth, but he owned Rusty's Florist. So yes, that was my grandpa.
Okay, that's wonderful. Oh my goodness. And so lots of our friends are commenting to each other there. Mahalo nui loa, Rusty, for taking time out of your schedule and joining us here on the Aloha Friday show. So refreshing. And I love this mental fitness, and that's staying in my head. Yeah, many of us may not be physically able to engage in sports, either because of health issues or advanced age. But you're sharing that mental fitness is something people of all ages, of all physical strengths or lack thereof, can definitely achieve. And you've shown how that's possible, right?
Yeah, because adversities are inevitable. All of us are going to have adversities at some point in our life, and some of us will have deeper levels of adversities than others, but adversities nonetheless. So training your mindset to be the victor versus a victim. How do you find solutions to the situation that you're in, or your family is in, or your team is in? How can you inspire them, to be the example when they're watching you go through health issues or, challenging business issues? I mean, look at through COVID, how many businesses closed. The ones that survived are still maybe not, they might be just barely surviving, but they found ways to adapt and adjust to find a way to survive. Just like how we need as individuals to adapt and adjust, because life happens. Life is life. And if we can have a positive attitude and train ourselves to have positive thoughts all the time, not just sometimes, then that's how we're going to be able to be inspirational to others to deal with whatever challenges they're dealing with, because it's inevitable. So it's conditioning your brain, your thoughts, your mindset the correct way.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rusty. Mahalo. Mahalo nui loa. Domo arigato gozaimashita. thank you so much for being with us on our Aloha Friday show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. What a fun time it was. We'll see you very soon. We'll see you next time on the Aloha Friday show with my good friend Augie Toba. That should be fun. Thank you, Rusty. Have a great rest of your day. Aloha, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.